Welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for another journey we call Living Hope. A weekly inspiration, education, motivational show about living with pancreatic cancer. Sharing the real life stories of those really affected by this deadly disease and how they deal with it on a daily basis. And today, well, we're going to do what we periodically do. We're kind of look back, look forward, look ahead, take an overview of where we are on this journey with a woman who's been on the journey longer than anybody I know, Roberta Luna. Hey, Roberta.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good today here. We're all wondering how you are always here today. You're the one in question here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm a little sore today. I'm doing good, which I guess could be a good thing that I am.
We're going to talk about that just a little bit, a kind of a tease for next week's show here. I've been trying to get you to try something for a while that I discovered. I don't have pancreatic cancer, but I have other conditions and whatnot. And I think that and it's worked for me. And I think that one of the things why I like it, all these alternative treatments, Western medicine is great at what it does. You need a knee replaced, go to a doctor. You're not going to take herbs. You're not going to do yoga. You're not going to do meditation. But if you've got chronic pain, chronic fatigue, chronic conditions, things that nobody can cure and just won't go away, like cancer, like fatigue, anxiety, fibromyalgia, high cholesterol, diabetes, 1,000 of these things we're all dealing with these days here. If you have one of those chronic conditions, most doctors will give you a pill maybe to try and moderate it or control it, but they can't cure it and they can't stop it. And they really don't know what to do for it. They just kind of shrug and say, well, that's sorry, just live with it. You're going to have fatigue, pain, problems. Cancer's kind of like that. They don't know what to do. They're getting better and coming up with treatments. City of Hope, Hogue, all these places, UCI, all these places we had talking about new machines, new techniques, new procedures. But at the end of the day, so much of the journey you guys spent, anxiety, pain, when you're taking the medication, nausea, there isn't a great deal they offer for that. So I think that's why people turn to alternatives.
Well, I think it helps because you don't always want to be taking something. I mean, they do have patches for pain and nausea. They do have certain things they can give you medication. But, some of the medications can leave you kind of dopey or a little on the dopey side where,
right.
And I don't want to spend all my time sleeping. If I'm going to be fighting to live, I want to be able to go and do things.
Right.
So if there's another choice that I might have that could work and could do something, why not at least give it a try or use the two together? I'm very fortunate where my doctors, I have holistic doctors as well as traditional, and so they work together to try to make me happy and make what I want my life to be. And I think that should be what everybody should have that choice as well.
I agree. And I think that while we can't always prove, there isn't the scientific evidence we know. The only scientific evidence I've seen, I think is pretty well accepted, is that Chinese medicine, which is all based on this idea that there's an energy flowing through your system, this series of meridians, your chi, your energy, and it's all about unblocking it so that it can flow freely. Because the theory is if it flows, it fixes things. If it's backed up, if it's blocked off, bad things happen. So the body is, you have to trust those two principles, that there is some hidden energy flowing through your body in a precise meridian pattern, even though nobody can prove that. They've tried to study it. Where is this meridian? I don't see it. Like, it's not my blood vessels. It's not my nerves. Maybe it is. Maybe it travels along those pathways. But these very well-defined meridians, when you open people up, they don't see them inside there. And they've never been able to actually see or measure the energy that Chinese, Indian traditional medicine, Japanese traditional, but you had somebody on with Reiki, Ayurvedic, Indian medicine, Chinese acupuncture, acupressure, all this stuff. It's all based on this idea, very common around the world for thousands of years, that there's some sort of energy flowing through your body, and if you unleash it, unblock it, it can heal itself.
Well, there has to be something to it. Like you said, it's been around forever. And even like, our Native Americans, I mean, they use the sweat lodge for a lot of things. And that
bring things
been,
out.
Yeah. And that's been proven, or at least, in there to do something. So I think there's something to it. And we have to, if you can, just give it a try, go in with an open mind. I try to be open, but Not always, especially
Well,
if it does, you can't see it. You know, it's something like
yes,
you take an X-ray, you can see the organ. Like you
right.
say, this isn't something that we've really been able to see. But I found it a little bit interesting when he had his little, we call it his magic wand and whatnot. You know, you hold one thing in your hand and he has the other that he's putting on certain points.
Pressure point. We know there are pressure points in the body. If you have a nausea, like they make you wear a little band on your wrist
Right.
to fight seasickness, or your third eye in Indian, you press that point between your two eyes, your third eye, and that relieves headaches and tensions and other things. So we know there are pressure points that do something, that relieve nausea, pain, other sorts of things. That seems to be the one accepted thing. They're not sure why acupuncture and acupressure and all these things necessarily do that, but hospitals have begrudging. I think even Medicare will pay for certain, if you're using it for pain relief or nausea relief or something. So there is something to it. But this idea that there's an energy flowing through your body in a precise pattern, and then if you unleash this energy, if it's blocked, bad things happen. If you unleash it, unblock it, get it flowing again, the body can, maybe not completely, but can help itself, heal itself. And that's a big leap of faith to go there. But what shocked me about, I went to this guy. We're going to have him on next week, Dr. Chen. He's a Chinese doctor. So really, all he is licensed as a massage therapist in this country. But in China, he'd be a doctor, right? He has
Yeah.
studied their medicine, and he has an amazing story because he was a scientist in China and had something to do with sensors, and like sensors in satellites or something to do with sensors, and had a company and built it up and was pretty successful at it and developed one of these chronic conditions. I think he had diabetes, and it was debilitating. I mean, he couldn't work, he couldn't sleep, couldn't do it. I don't know what happens to you when you really have high diabetes, but so he went in the hospital, and they tried to control it. They gave him medication, but it had side effects and it didn't get rid of it. So somebody said, hey, you're in China. Why don't you try Chinese medicine? He's like, this is hooey. I'm a scientist. I'm not going to go back to witchcraft. And but he's tried out of desperation because nothing else helped. I think that's why all of us do. Somebody says you're going to die, you have a 90% chance of dying, you'll try anything, I assume.
Pretty much, yeah.
And so he said, I'll try it. And it did. It got it under control. He said it got it balanced again. And so he gave up. He sold his company, gave up his life, much to his wife's dismay, I think, and went back to school and learned to be a Chinese herbalist, traditional medicine, and came to this country. And that's been his life's mission now for the last 10, 20 years to bring this to the people with chronic conditions. What he brought different was that he said, I got to try and measure and find this missing energy. We know there's a little electrical energy in their body. They can measure a slight electrical impulse in your body. I don't know what chemically it generates it, and like a battery type of thing. And so he started experimenting with that and trying to sense it and then correlate if I'm getting this kind of reading, what's that telling me about the energy, where it's not flowing, where this electricity is not flowing, or where it's blocked or whatever. And I don't know how he did it. Maybe it's all a giant scam. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it is. He seems very serious about this. And he has tons of people he's treated through the years, and they all have the same thing I do. I don't know what it works. It's kind of like magic, but it did something. And what impressed me was, I told you this story off air. So I went over to see him, somebody's suggestion, because I had a problem, which I'll tell you in a second. And so he said, okay, what's your problem? I said, you're the doctor with the magic wand. You tell me. I'm very skeptical. So he said, okay. And he put the wand down, and it's a sensor, and it senses the energy flow in your body at different pressure points. Your wrist, your foot, your toe, all these different set pressure points. And somehow it feeds it into a computer, and that's what he's figured out, what that information is telling you. And it correlates it to, this is telling me you've got low energy here, high energy here, energy block there. Rather than guessing, he says it helps him hone right in on it. So he did this little test for a minute, and he said, something's going on with your lung, a lot of inflammation. And I had never told him or anybody, yeah, I have what's called a rare thing. It's like a little pimple on my lung. It's a growth in my lung. And they can't remove it, they can't stop it, and it hurts like hell when it gets inflamed, like you're going to have a heart attack. And I've had an MRI, and they said, nothing we can do. We can't operate. Maybe if it gets really big, we'll try and operate, but other than that, just grin and bear it. And so he said that's where it is. So he starts saying, well, then if that's your problem in your lung, then I'm going to massage you behind your toe and behind your thigh. And I'm like, what does that have to do with my lung? Well, it's all connected to this meridian, this flow of energy. That there's, I don't know how many, 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 meridians that flow through your body. And they all connected in this circular pattern. And so he starts doing everything. And 2 things happen. One, it hurt like hell. That's what you experienced yesterday. It hurt like hell.
It did.
And I thought, well, that's weird. I didn't know it hurt behind my big toe or behind my knee. I never touched myself there. And that can't be good. Pain is an indication of a problem. So maybe he's onto something. And it took a long time, I'm going to say months before I'd go once a week before the pain would stop. But eventually the pain stopped, and now it doesn't hurt anymore. And I can't prove the connection, but I went in to get my MRI this year and on the little lung nodule, and it has stabilized. It stopped growing. In fact, it shrunk a little bit. And the doctor goes, oh, lucky you. Like a tumor, right?
Right.
So I can't prove that this energy, he opened up some energy flow and directed it to my lung, but that's what happened. And if nothing else, it's like a deep tissue massage. It really, once you get past the painful part of it, it really does, I don't know if it's the constricted veins, the constricted muscles. You know, we're all so tense. I'm always so tense and everything here. That's what, so I feel tired because I'm always tensed up. And just that relaxing feeling is
I hope
going.
I get to that point.
But you got to get past the pain. I heard people screaming in there, ow, ow. I almost had him stop a couple times. In a weird place. Where was he touching you? Or where does he, if I can ask?
There was a place in my back, upper back that surprised me. And then just in a certain area in my arm.
In your arm,
And,
yeah.
yeah.
Did you didn't complain? You didn't think you had a sore arm?
I mean,
or
when I
what?
touched here, it doesn't hurt. But he did something, I'm telling you.
Way down, he hit some nerve, some pressure point.
He
And
certainly
wow.
did. And in my legs, one of the legs. And I've had trouble with that area. Just didn't realize why. But what I found kind of interesting is, like I said, he had his little magic wand, and he actually told me where inflammation was, where I had known previously because the doctors had done their test, which was a lot more testing than just waving a little wand in certain areas.
Yeah.
So
And
I
that's-
was kind of impressed that he knew where my inflammation already was.
His
so.
differentiator is he's trying to bring a scientific approach to a traditional healing method. So yes, it's natural. Yes, it's been around for thousands of years. Yes, it's based on an idea of energy and flowing energy. But rather than guessing, let me stick the needle here. Let me hit this pressure point. How does that feel? And guessing, he feels, rightly or wrongly, that he's been able to measure this, and then he can zero it. He can find the problem faster and zero in it quicker.
Well, I'm going to give it. I have another appointment next week. I'm going to give it a couple months back,
Oh,
providing I can.
you're going to
live
have to
through
get to
it.
about at least 10 or 12 before the pain will stop. I'm going to tell you that. It's
Well,
gonna take
I
a
don't know.
while.
We'll see if we can get that far.
My wife went once or twice. And I'm not going again. This hurts too much here.
At least the Ricky didn't hurt at all, so
Yeah, right.
it's fine. And I still felt something from that as well. But it was a different experience, and like I said, I'm willing to give a little bit of a try and see where it goes, because I believe you have to try other things if it helps, and
You've tried yoga. What do you think of yoga?
I love yoga. I mean, I never thought I could do it.
Because
But
it's kind of, it really is fundamentally based that there is an energy in your body, and you're, rather than somebody massaging you, you're manipulating your body to move in ways you didn't think you could move,
yeah, exactly.
and to open up the flow of your energy, really, and your muscles and everything else here.
Yeah, no, I really like doing yoga. I find it very relaxing, and it
Yeah.
did help with certain, when I told her where my pain was, there were certain things she could have me do that did help that. So
She needed a magic wand.
yeah, there you go. We could just do that. But I believe just
sensor.
in, offering at least these resources, or, I don't want to tell somebody to go out and do it because it's going to be different for everybody, but
And go test your diet. None of this is proven, folks. This is all anecdotal. This is all traditional healing. The FDA doesn't have this approved. There isn't, although Medicare and most insurances will pay for some of this now, because mostly if it's for pain or nausea, that there has
Right.
been enough testing that somehow that does seem to help pain and nausea.
and if it does, then it's like I said, it can take you off some of the medications that kind of leave you a little bit where you can't do what you might want to do. Then why not give it a try?
Well, what's phenomenal is I've been pushing you to try and talk to this guy. I know you're hesitant to go do it, and I understand
Well,
why.
if you would have told me the pain involved,
I know, I would have never told you that far. You wouldn't have gone. But the other thing is that, what was I going to say? Oh, he has a patient that this guy's been on YouTube and everything, and he shows the charts, and here's where my pancreatic cancer was, and after a year of doing this Chinese medicine, this acupressure technique, he claims that's why he's alive. It didn't cure it. Nothing makes it magically go away, but he thinks it stopped the growth, like the growth in my lung nodule, that it stabilized it, that it, you does anybody ever told you why, or guessed why yours stopped, went into dormancy, went into?
No, they can't explain it. The only thing that, and I don't know, like I said, I have a mix of doctors, traditional and holistic.
Yeah.
Holistic tends to believe what I'm saying is once I changed some things and I went more natural, like including vitamins and herbs.
Vitamins,
And,
you're a big believer in vitamins,
yeah,
herbs.
the yoga, the
Diet,
meditation.
you got rid of sugars and some
Yeah,
other
getting
things.
rid of my beloved Dr. Pepper.
Right.
That's when things started to change.
Yeah.
Now, is it just a coincidence? Did it help? I don't know, but I believe that making those changes did something, and
Right.
it caused it just to go dormant, go to sleep, and it can stay that way until,
So,
you know.
and you're not a doctor, and I'm not asking you to be, but is there hope? Are there others who have gotten to these things early enough? And because there's clearly, I remember, who was the woman that was on Saturday Night Live?
Gilda Radner.
Gilda Radner. She didn't have pancreatic cancer.
No, it was either ovarian or
Something.
yeah.
And she tried every holistic thing in the world and wrote a book about it and everything, and in the end died. So there are good people that try good diets and good exercise and energy healing and shamans and everything else and still die. But there seem to be an awful lot of people like you or me and my little lung nodule that somehow you change something. You change your diet, you change exercise, you change your mindset, you change energy, if there really is an energy in your body. You do something along these lines and something changes. It stops, it slows down or whatever, and that alone is worth exploring. And then maybe that does give you some mental, you say yoga, does it help you mentally
I think
deal with
so.
this?
Yeah, I think so. I think it does. Like I said, it's just a different feeling of doing it, just coming out of it.
Put you in
and
peace, put you in relaxation, take you out of crisis mode or something.
Yeah, because you learn how to relax. You learn how to take those moments when things are getting really tough and maybe set aside so that you can come back to a good place. I think a lot of it is mindset. But like I said, you can try anything and do everything, and at some point in time, maybe it's not going to work. But if it makes you feel like you're doing something, and you're feeling like you're in control, that's the whole thing with any cancer. You lose
Yes.
control.
I was going to say that. I can't stop this little lung nodule. It's not cancer, thank God, but it's a growth. I can't stop it. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not even sure what caused it. But so it's something. I'm at the mercy of it. It has a
Yes.
mind of its own,
Yep.
and I don't like that. I'd like to feel like I have more control over my body. I'm not controlled by my body. Now, sometimes you are if you have a stroke or something. But even then, people fight through it. Some people
Yeah.
fight through it and everything.
Yeah, I always refer to my tumor. It feels like it's a time bomb because I never know when it's going to go off.
Right.
But if I can do something to either, make me think I'm doing something positive to either delay it or just to give myself peace of mind, then I think that helps the overall outlook on
Because
everything.
otherwise, what? Then you're just a victim. You're surrendered to it.
I won't be a victim. Yeah,
You have a
I'm not.
different mentality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
Woe is me. I can't do anything about it here. And maybe you do. Some people say just surrender to these things. It's God's will, whatever's going to happen or something. But it's hard for me just to surrender and give up. And
well, I hear that a lot, but I think God gave me the will to also want to fight.
yeah.
So if that's
For you,
God's
for
will,
sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he's not ready for me right now.
No, he's like, oh, please. I got enough trouble with the world. I don't need Roberta up here telling me what to do
Yeah,
here.
stay down there as long as you can. So,
Right.
but I do think there's a mix. It's like you say, there are people that do everything right. They live right, if you want to say that. They exercise, don't smoke, drink, they eat correctly, but yet they still get cancer. They still die of a heart attack. So I don't know what
Yeah.
the answer is, but just do what you feel you are doing for yourself to give yourself the best quality of life
I
that
think
you can.
that's it. I never thought of it. It's feeling like you're doing something.
Yeah.
And it seems to have for many, some positive impact. Maybe it's an illusion. Maybe it's you're kidding yourself. Maybe it's a coincidence. But what else? You got to try, because the doctors don't give you this little lung nodule thing. Now, this is bad example. I'm not going to die from this thing, although it makes you feel like you're going to die sometimes. There is no hope. I've looked online, I've talked to the doctor, they just make that they throw their arms up and give you that look like, what do you want me to tell you?
And that's not what you want with any illness. You want something, to
Give me something.
Yeah, something
Right.
you can do. You can do this to help the pain, or you can do this to help the nausea, or to get rid of it. So whatever it is you feel you can do, I said it's empowering. Take control of your own body, because you really have very little control of it once you're dealing with, I think, any illness, whether
Right.
it's cancer or anything else.
It
And you're-
consumes you. My mother had Parkinson's. It consumed the last 10 years of her life, which were miserable. She was a fun-loving Irish woman, funny story, funny person. The last 10 years, if you saw her depressed, shaking, eventually dementia, fell all the time, broke things all the time, which only made her more frightened to death of every minute she got up. She's thinking, I'm going to fall. And what's going to happen? She was always thinking negatively, just constant negative thinking all day long. She couldn't have fun. You take her out to a restaurant, I'm not going to get to the bathroom in time. Everybody's looking at me. I'm going to fall. I'm going to choke. Oh boy, this is fun. Let's just stay home. That's what she did.
And that's not the kind of life you want to leave.
No.
I mean, I know my mom loved to talk and she loved to eat. And when those two things were taken away from her, we knew it was time to let go. But
Yeah.
you have to come to that realization on your own. Nobody can put you there. But I think if you take control, whether it's doing, Eastern medicine, traditional, whatever it is, something that you feel that you're having an input in, it makes all the difference than just sitting there and having them tell you what you
When
need
you
to
all
do.
get together in these group therapies or one-on-one or at conferences or whatever, most of you don't talk about that stuff. You talk about the Whipple surgery and the side effects of chemo and things to do to expect or battle. Or I mean, you talk about very tangible, real things that you've talked about on the show. Several of your guests have hinted, I went to see an Indian shaman. I went to a sweat lodge. I did yoga. I tried acupuncture or something here. It's almost like you're embarrassed. Do people look at you funny? She's in the wing and a prayer. She's in the Hail Mary phase. She's just trying any crazy thing that'll come along here.
I think most of the people I deal with, they understand, so they know. I mean, a lot of them don't do it because they believe very much in the traditional medicine, so they don't want to maybe offend their doctor a lot of times.
Right.
But for most people, they're pretty much, I mean, as long as it sounds like it's something and not something crazy like stand on your head and drink this particular brand of water. I mean,
Right.
I think they're willing to just about try anything because, again, you just lose that control, and it's just trying to get that back.
That's the one thing I see with all chronic conditions is, one, you get consumed by it, and two, it's almost a desperation. I'll try anything. I can't stand the pain any longer. I can't stand shaking any longer. I can't stand the fatigue any longer. I will stand on my head and drink water and whistle Dixie or something. I'll try anything. So I guess there's always a fear that you're going to get taken to the cleaners. You're going to get fooled. You're going to get sold witch doctor or whatever.
Yeah, and
Fake
I think
medicine, yeah.
that is something to be concerned about because there is a lot out there that, I mean, I get stuff all the time from, people wanting me to try this or that, and it'll cost me this to do it. But in the long run, I get my life, and, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Or if you listen, I think, to your basic instinct and something tells you it's not right, then you need to steer away
What about
from
religion?
it.
We've never had anybody. I'm a cradle to grave Catholic. I mean, I go every Sunday to Mass. I'm one of the only ones in my extended family that I know. That everybody else gave up and quit a long time ago. I'm still in there, and I wonder about people that go to Lourdes seeking a miracle, wherever a miracle has occurred in the Catholic Church. Delicately dances around and finally will say, well, maybe there was a miracle here. Maybe the Virgin Mary did appear or something. Maybe. And then people flock there like Lourdes, where the Virgin Mary supposedly appeared in the, 1800s or something, or some grotto to these kids. And that grotto is now packed day in and day out with people who are crippled, desperate, have given up all hope, and they come in the hope that maybe they will get a miracle.
I guess I believe in miracles. I guess I would have to, since people always tell me I'm a miracle. But
You are a miracle. You're a walking miracle. 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think there is something too. I mean, I'm not probably the most religious person in the world, but I do believe in God, and I do believe there's a higher, whether it is God or something else, a higher spirit there that, will help me through this. And I don't ever ask for a miracle or to be cured. It just to, enjoy life and to get through the day. And usually, if there's somebody else out there that I've come across, my prayers usually go for them, to have an easier time
Because
or to
isn't
get
that
through.
supposedly, my mother talked a great deal about the stages of grief. I think Elizabeth Kubler-Ross identified them in the 70s or 60s or something here. And I forgot there's 5 or so
There's
stages
five,
of
yeah.
grief, 5. And the first is denial. No, I can't do that. And the next is anger. Why me? And then somewhere in there is bargaining. Hey, God, tell you what, if you get me this, I'll go to church every day. I'll help the poor. I'll make you a deal.
I didn't go through those stages. People ask me all the time. I didn't go through those stages. Mainly the first thing it was like, when you say why me, it's like, why not me?
Yeah.
What is so special about me that I shouldn't have
And why
to?
should it be that person
Yeah.
instead of me? Yeah.
So it's not something that I didn't go through those stages, but I have heard others that have. It's just trying to, I think if anything, it just made me, instead of saying why me, like again, like I said, it's why not me, but it made me stronger to want to fight and to want to do something. And like I said many times, and I know it wasn't, but after I got my diagnosis and I went to my car and turned on the radio, Bob Marley was singing, don't worry about a thing, every little thing's gonna be all right.
Everything's going to be
And,
all
yeah,
right.
and that was just like, for me, that was just like, yeah, it is. It's going to be all right. It may not be the easiest, but it's going to be all right. For whatever time limit I have, I'm going to make it all right. And hopefully I've done that for my family and my friends. Hopefully I've made it easier for them.
Well, you've made it all right for us to talk about the unimaginable. As I've said a million times, I couldn't. This was one of those conversations I didn't think it would be all right to talk about week in and week out, because it can be depressing and it's scary, and I don't want to hear it, and I don't want to think about it, and I don't want to know about it, and I just want to stick my head in the sand and pretend it's never going to happen to me and hope I miss it or whatever. And if it does happen to you, I think it must feel very alone. Nobody wants to. Did everybody want to talk about your pancreatic cancer? And you're like, okay, I've heard that enough. Thank you, Roberta.
No, in fact, it took me a while to even really tell anybody, because after my diagnosis, I'd gone to a support group, and they go around, you introduce yourself and say the kind of cancer you have, and
Right.
somebody said breast, and they, clapped and got all happy, and somebody said another one, and they got the same reaction. I said pancreatic, and it was just like a stop in the air, like, and they just looked at me, and I have a really vivid imagination, unfortunately, and for me, the first thing I thought they were saying, oh, well, she's not going to be here next week. And
Yeah, let's not get to know her. She's dead.
I actually saw them in my mind digging my grave, rolling me in,
Yeah.
and throwing the dirt on top.
Yeah.
So after that experience, I thought, because when you tell anybody, you get this look. It's not like with anything else. You get this look automatically. For me, it's hard enough to fight any illness, but especially pancreatic cancer, that I just didn't talk about it. I didn't tell anybody until I really had to. And I could talk about my dad's situation, his family, but I could not talk about myself. It took me, I want to say, probably 6 years to what I say come out of the closet, which led a different story as well.
Yeah,
But
right.
it took me a long time to come out and talk about it and tell people that I was being affected
And
by
I
it as
found
well.
that when, like with my mother's illness, with her Parkinson's, part of it was her perception that she was embarrassed and she didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want any pity. She didn't want people looking at her and strangely and everything else here. And then when I'd say, no, Mom, that's in your head, everybody understands, everybody's sympathetic. And we'd see her go to church and everybody'd look away because she's shaking all the way down the aisle here. Or we'd start to talk about it and people would change the subject real quick because they didn't know what to say or they didn't want to hear it.
They're uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable talking about
It's like, because a lot of times you get I get the look, well, this might be the last time we see her, so
Yeah.
they'll either hug me a little bit longer than necessary, or they won't hug me at all, because they just, I've even had people tell me, oh, don't get too close, I might catch it. So
Yeah.
it's like, what they even think pancreatic cancer is, has been kind
I
of
don't know why this
strange.
makes me think this, but I was watching an interview with Tom Cruise, of all things, the other day, and it was one of his latest Mission Impossible movies, I guess, came out a while ago or recently or something, and he does these death-defying stunts. That's what he's known for. I
Yeah.
mean, like to the point where he puts himself literally in harm's way. Now, he says he does it very carefully with a lot of thought, planning, but he is jumping off a 100-story
Buildings, yeah.
building or something here. and he really does do these crazy things. So anyway, one of the people interviewing him said, "What do people say to you right before you do it?" And he laughed. He said, "Well, they don't come up to me and start crying and say, 'Well, it's been great knowing you.'" He said, "I don't want to hear that." He said, "I want it to be normal. This is just what we're doing today. We've practiced it. Now we're going to jump off the building. Just like, and then later on, we're going to take this shot of me in the car, and then we're going to do this. It's just a normal sequence. This is just another scene in the movie here." And it was so funny. I never thought about that. He said, yeah, I mean, people don't know what to say when they think death is at hand here,
Yeah.
or there's a possibility of dying.
It's very hard, I think, for some people, and I always feel bad when I have to tell somebody, and I felt really guilty when I had to tell my family and my friends what I had because of their reaction more
Right.
than my own reaction. But it's funny because sometimes, in the early, it's changed now, thank goodness, but they start to treat you differently. Everything you say is right and correct.
Yes.
They don't want to argue because they don't want that to be the last moment. That, I had an argument with them, and that's not something that I wanted. And I'm sure most people don't want to be treated differently.
Yeah.
So, but it is very difficult, and I understand. It's like I said, I mean, I could tell somebody the sky is purple or yellow, and they'd say, "Oh yeah, okay, it is," and
Yeah,
we know it's
that's
not.
a good point. Yeah.
It's raining when the sun is shining, and they would agree with me. So
Yeah.
it's just something that I guess they don't want that last conversation to be, something like they can't take back. So they'd rather not argue than.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would try to push the envelope to make them argue. But
I think you're a real jerk. Yes, I really am, Roberta. Thank you for pointing out. I think you're an incredible jerk. Yeah, well, thank you, Roberta. I think you're ugly, too. Well, all right, Roberta, you're pushing it now here.
yeah, so it's funny, but yeah, you do get treated differently. And then as time goes on, though, they see, I think it gets easier. But there have been some people that have we no longer have a relationship by their choice. My door's still open if they want to come back at any point in time. But I think it was just what one of them told me. It was easier for them to cut me out now at that time
Yeah.
than to wait until I died and then have to go through whatever. I go, well, I'm still here.
Little did
So-
they know, 20 years
Yeah,
they've been waiting.
21, give me that
21,
one,
let's
21.
get, yeah, don't cut it short. Well, I don't want to cut this short. We've gone a little over today here, but it's a fascinating just time to retrospective look at all the alternatives out there. Yes, you're going to go and hopefully going to get a procedure if you can qualify for this. Yes, there is growing science and they're getting to it earlier, and there's better directed therapies and radiation, and there's certainly clinical trials out. There's hope, and that has raised the life expectancy from 5% to 10 or 12 or
We're
whatever
on
it
12
is.
right now, yes.
Hooray. But that still means 9 out of 10 people roughly are going to die.
And I know I should be thrilled at 12%, but I'm really not.
No.
When I was diagnosed, it was 4%. So why have we come so short in such a long period of time? 21 years, and we haven't really gained. And I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but we haven't gained that much. I mean,
No.
yes, it's gotten better, but we need it to be better. We need it to be a higher
Breast
survival rate.
cancer must be at 50% now or something.
Oh, they're higher than that. Prostate right now is almost 99%, I believe. So,
So, yes, we're looking for medical answers, but in the meantime, you still got to deal with the pain, the nausea, the fear, the anxiety, the feeling of helplessness, the feeling of hopelessness. And maybe some of this stuff is just hooey, but maybe it does help you. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe it's something we should all be doing along the way. We certainly should eat better. We should certainly exercise better. We should certainly probably be more mindful and positive and all the things that you've talked about here too. But I think there's something to all these other non-traditional, non-Western ways, and I think they're a great complement, and I think they can help the process. They can help the journey.
yeah, and if they can help you feel like you've taken some control to help you get better, or even just to make you feel better.
And maybe it
What's
does.
it gonna
Maybe it
hurt?
slows it down. Maybe it stunts it, like my little not tumor, my little growth in my body here. I don't know. There are people who really believe that it has, and certainly the hope is that the body, natural methods are better than artificial methods, and that the body has incredible resiliency and ability to heal itself if you tap into it. If you don't short circuit it by putting crap in your body and tensing up and stressing out and everything.
Well, and it's kind of hard
Negativity.
not to do those things. I mean, but if you can combine, like I said, I've combined the traditional with, something different, and
What else does you do? You do vitamins. You're a big believer in vitamins.
the vitamins and
Yoga, you've tried that
yeah,
out.
or the certain herbs that I do, and
Right.
like the yoga's really helped. Meditation, I still have a hard time with because my mind still wanders. So, but I'm
I do
working
too.
on
It's
it. But
hard
yeah.
to just sit and focus on one
Yeah.
thing or
I think
focus on nothing.
the yoga helps a great deal because you do some meditation with the yoga, so that does help a great deal. But it's not like you can just sit down somewhere and suddenly do yoga, So
Well, I don't have cancer, but I do have other conditions, and I do suffer from, like we all do, the modern American diseases: anxiety, tension, headaches, pain, fatigue, all those things which just seem to be, are just everybody. You go and tell your doctor, I'm fatigued and I've got pains, and he goes, yeah, so's everybody else out in the hallway
stand
there.
in line.
Yeah, so what? What's the big problem? The big problem is we're all tensed up and everything here. So I think anything that helps slow that down has to help your body fight or heal anything that's going
Yeah.
on
Or
there.
just your emotion.
Your
the
emotional
emotions,
state too, and your
it's-
positive
yeah.
state. People say be positive. I've seen people, my late aunt included, that just willed themselves to death. It's hard to believe that you can just give up and die, but I've seen people do it. And consequently, I've seen people who fought like hell, like you, and didn't die. So I don't know what your mind is. Mind doesn't stop the little tumor in there. What your positive brain waves don't do anything, or do they? I don't know.
I think it's a combination, and again, I think there's something higher out there that decides when our time is going to happen,
Yeah.
and not necessarily a doctor. Though I understand where they get their information and why they do what they do, but there's a higher power out there, whatever you want to believe, that is going to decide when my time is.
My mother was very fatalistic and very old school Catholic like that. So she used to say that everybody has an expiration date from the day you're born.
Right.
You're like
You're one day closer to death.
you just don't know what that. Unlike a can of soup, it isn't printed on the bottom. You don't know what the expiration date is of that can of soup. But I don't know. I'm with you. I got to try something. I can't just say, okay, God's will, whatever happens, I accept. It's hard for me to just sit back and do nothing.
Exactly. You can't just sit there, and I know a lot of people wish I would just sit there sometimes.
Just sit there
and do nothing
shut
and be
up.
quiet, but it's not in my nature. And I had survivor guilt, which a lot of us do have, and I questioned it one time, and
We
I
should
did.
do a show on that. sometime.
Definitely. One person, I love her to death, but she came to me and she said, well, look at it this way. God only takes those that are perfect, and you're definitely not perfect. So I'm willing to stay unperfect for a very long time.
Exactly. Well, we brought up a lot of good issues here. We went over. Thanks for joining us today, folks, here on this edition of Living Hope. Once in a while, we just sort of take a breath and pause and look at, and a little bit of a tease what you did go through this week and what we're going to talk about next week. Another one of these crazy things. You're going to go back next week, though, even it hurts, right?
Yeah, I'll go back on Wednesday. Like I said, I'll give it a couple of tries and see
How bad it hurts and how long I can do this.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. All right. Thanks for joining us right here on Living Hope. A weekly journey designed to provide hope, inspiration, and education for those living with pancreatic cancer. The key is living with. Sharing the real life stories of those really affected by this deadly disease and how they deal with it on a daily basis. If you'd like to share your story, please contact us. Or if you'd like to learn more, lots of organizations out there. We'll start with the one right here in Orange County, the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. Just call Patient Services 877-2-PANCAN. That's 877, the number 2, PANCAN for Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. For the OC Talk Radio Network, I'm Paul Roberts, thanking you for joining us, hoping you'll ride along and join us again as we continue to explore the boundaries and ideas and the stories, good and bad, of what it's like to be on this journey called pancreatic cancer. Streaming live from our studios here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.